For nearly a year, I lived a life that was less than human, a ghost haunting the corridors of a private prison. All because I had dared to challenge my wife's old flame. Forget it, Ava. Maybe he just feels I shouldn't have come back. The man, her long-lost love, looked crestfallen. My wife, Ava, erupted in a fury and had me thrown into this hellhole on a trumped-up charge. Eventually, she remembered I existed and had me released. But the torrential love I once had for her had long since evaporated, leaving behind a barren wasteland. Number 118. Get your things. You're free to go. Hearing those words, I dazedly pinched the corner of my threadbare, faded uniform. As I approached the main gate, Blade, the prison's top dog, blocked my path. I instinctively flinched, trying to shrink away, but a sharp slap landed across my face. Remember this. Not a word about what happens in here to anyone on the outside. His narrow eyes gleamed with a vicious light. Otherwise, I'll find you, and I'll beat you every single time. I mumbled, I know, Blade. A heavy kick sent me stumbling out the gate, followed by the roaring laughter of the other inmates. I squinted at the sunlight, a sight I hadn't properly seen in what felt like a lifetime. In this place, a clear sky was a rare luxury. The memory of my humiliations returned, and I bit my lip, shame and anger churning within me. Get going. Someone's here to pick you up. I nodded, my legs heavy as lead, and walked through the prison gates. A garish red Ferrari was parked just outside. The window rolled down to reveal Ava's stunning face. Her eyes, hidden behind dark sunglasses, scanned me with undisguised contempt. Get in the car. Stop dawdling. I opened the door and slid into the passenger seat. She wrinkled her nose, seeming to want to say something, but holding it back. You stink. Make sure you wash up as soon as we get home. I just nodded. This uniform was the cleanest thing I owned. The stench was a gift from Blade, a memento from one of his lessons. I didn't explain. The first rule I learned in that place was simple. Keep your mouth shut. The drive was unervingly silent. Staring out at the passing scenery, my mind drifted back to the time before my imprisonment. Ava was the campus goddess I had pursued for years. I was there for her, a constant comfort when she was abandoned and heartbroken. But then, one day, he returned. She brought Julian, her old flame, into our home. The way they laughed and joked, they looked like the perfect couple. I couldn't stand it and made a few cold, sarcastic remarks directed at him. The man's eyes immediately reddened, and he fell silent. For a moment, I thought I had won. In reality, I had lost everything. The very next morning, my own wife escorted me to this private prison, telling me it was to teach me some manners. The sky was weeping with a cold, relentless rain that day, but the smug, triumphant smirk on Julian's face was burned into my memory forever. Inside, I was beaten daily. With every blow, the love I held for her withered away, and the fog in my mind began to clear. Get out. Her sharp command broke my reverie. The car had stopped in front of a small, dilapidated house in the most remote corner of my property portfolio. Julian doesn't want to see you, she stated flatly. Stay here for a while. When he's in a better mood, I'll come get you. I nodded without a word, pushed the door open, and stepped out. The moment I was clear, the Ferrari sped off, kicking up a cloud of dust that seemed to whisper of her heartless cruelty. I gave a bitter smile. It seemed she had forgotten that I was her husband. I stepped into the house. A thick blanket of dust hung in the air, so dense that even after a year of hard labor in prison, it made me choke and cough. Covering my mouth and nose with my sleeve, I began the long process of cleaning. By the afternoon, the decrepit house was neat and tidy once more. This was the home Ava and I had shared when I was just starting my business. Later, when I made my fortune, we moved into a grand mansion. And now, that mansion was home to another man. I clenched my fists silently. I sniffed my own clothes, curious about the stench that had so disgusted my wife. In the foul, mixed odors of the prison, I could never distinguish one smell from another. Now, a sharp, acrid smell of urine assaulted my nostrils, nearly making me gag. The memories flooded back. For some reason, from the day I arrived, I was a target. Even on days I wasn't beaten, I was subjected to a torrent of verbal abuse. To survive, I learned to be meek and subservient. But Blade seemed to hate me on sight. Once, while I was washing his feet, he tried to force me to drink the dirty water. When I resisted, the beating that followed was more brutal than anything before. They pinned me to the floor and let Blade urinate all over my head. Aren't you afraid I'll get revenge when I get out? I had gasped through the humiliation. He slowly pulled up his pants, then patted my cheek with a look of disgust. What do I have to be afraid of, he drawled. Forgot to tell you, kid. Your pal Blade is never getting out of here. And besides, the folks upstairs specifically told me to teach you the rules. He took a towel from a nearby lackey, wiped his hands, and threw it squarely in my face. Watching them leave, I slowly picked myself up. To stay alive, I had to endure the indignity. Thankfully, after almost a year, I was free. Pushing the memories aside, I rummaged through the house and found some of my old clothes, changing out of the foul prison uniform. That evening, Ava came to see me. She walked in, her eyes sweeping over the clean house with undisguised surprise. You're a tidy one. You actually cleaned this place up quite well. She tossed a wad of cash onto the floor. The bills, once neatly stacked, scattered across the room. Ava just stood there, watching. Before prison, my pride would have never allowed me to pick it up. Now, as a man who couldn't even afford his next meal, I had no right to refuse. I met her mocking gaze, then knelt and silently gathered the scattered money. She seemed shocked by my compliance, her eyes wide with disbelief. I looked at her calmly. Did she still think I was the same proud, successful Leo from before? That man had been ground to dust in prison. She drew herself up, her voice dripping with contempt. Julian was right. Someone like you, fresh out of prison, has no dignity. Take this money as a charity. And don't bother me. She slammed the door and left. I knew from her hasty departure that my meekness had struck a nerve. This shell of a man was a direct result of her actions, and the guilt, however small, had to be there. With the money in my pocket, I went to a nearby phone shop. After buying a new phone, there was little left. I logged into my bank account and found it empty. The money I had saved over the years was gone, and the only person who knew my PIN was Ava. At that moment, whatever lingering embers of affection I had for her were finally extinguished. My wife was using my money to support another man, while I, her husband, was a plaything for her amusement. In college, Ava was the campus queen. Julian and I were best friends. Knowing I was unworthy of her, I buried my crush deep inside. It was only later, when Julian brought her to one of our gatherings, that I realized my best friend was dating the woman I loved. Throughout their relationship, Julian repeatedly humiliated her behind her back. He even badmouthed her in front of us, saying she was like a dead fish in bed and that he was only with her for her family's money. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to tell her the truth, but I held back. Then, Julian took all her money and vanished. Seeing the woman I loved heartbroken day after day, I finally found the courage to pursue her. I agreed to every one of her conditions, willing to give her anything she wanted just for a chance. But less than a year into our marriage, Julian returned. They rekindled their romance, and he spun a web of lies, claiming I had been the one to sabotage their love. I'll never forget the day she brought him into our home. All I did was make a few jealous remarks, and for that, she sent me to prison to learn some manners, even telling the guards to give me special attention. It was a rainy, miserable day, as if the heavens themselves were weeping for me. But my wife only saw that I had bullied her precious man. And the company I had built from scratch? It fell into their hands the moment I was locked away. My entire fortune was gone. I let out a long sigh and went out to look for a job. But with a prison record, no one would hire me. As my money dwindled, I calculated how many days I had left, determined not to ask Ava for anything. On the last day, with no money left for food, I sat on the bed in silence. Finally, I gave in and went to find her. This time, all I wanted was enough money to start over. I didn't care about anything else. I drafted a divorce agreement. I asked for a one-time settlement and nothing more. I didn't even mention the company. I emailed it to Ava and took a cab to our marital home. I confidently typed in the security code at the door, a number I had set to celebrate our wedding day. Incorrect password. I tried again and again. Just as I was about to give up, the door opened from the inside. It was Julian, dressed in my loungewear, standing in my doorway. Leo, you're out so soon. Come in, come in. He made me feel like a stranger in my own home. Where's Ava? I asked curtly. Oh, she'll be back any minute. Just wait. As if on cue, a car pulled up outside. My wife, dressed in a sharp business suit, walked in. What are you doing here? She demanded, her brow furrowed in annoyance. I came to get what's mine, and I need enough money to start a new business, since no one will hire me. At this, Julian feigned surprise. Why would that be? You're so smart, Leo. Why would no one want to hire you? Unless you treated them the way you treated me all those years ago. His words trailed off, and I raised an eyebrow, baffled. Ava, however, urged him to continue. The man's eyes reddened with manufactured tears. He looked at me timidly, as if afraid I would strike him. It's all my fault, he whimpered, as Ava looked on with growing concern. That's why Leo treated me so badly. He took a deep breath. Leo was in love with you too, back then. But because you and I were together, he used his business connections to crush me. I ended up with massive debts. I had no choice but to take the money and run. I didn't want to drag you down, for you to see me in such a pathetic state. He wiped a tear from his eye. Ava's eyes widened in shock. You told me you were set up, that you owed money to loan sharks. So it was you. She trailed off, looking at me with pure fury. The look in her eyes told me she believed every word. I never thought you could be such a venomous person, she shrieked. You tried to destroy him just because you wanted me. I was too tired to argue. Believe what you want. I have nothing to say. If you want the truth, you can investigate it yourself. I pushed past them and went upstairs to get my clothes, only to find my closet filled with Julian's things. Everything in the room that was once mine had been replaced. Even our wedding portrait hanging on the wall had been swapped for a photo of her and Julian. Less than a year, and this place had nothing to do with me anymore. I walked out of the bedroom with a sarcastic smile. Julian met my gaze with a triumphant smirk. Ava, at least, had the decency to look guilty. After all, we weren't divorced yet. It was absurd for him to be living here. Ignoring them, I went to the study and packed a few of my things, including a jade bangle locked in the safe. It had belonged to my mother, a family heirloom to be passed down to my wife. I remember offering it to Ava. She had refused, saying it was old-fashioned, and had even sneered that only my family would treasure such a piece of junk. I was so in love with her then that I let it slide. The memory was bitter now. Thank God she hadn't wanted it. As I came downstairs, the two of them were huddled together, whispering. Julian's eyes were still red, as if he had suffered a great injustice. Seeing me, Ava rushed forward. Let's get a divorce. I raised an eyebrow, looking down at her. Forgot to tell you. I already emailed you the divorce papers. She looked at me in disbelief, then checked her phone. Her face turned ugly. She raised her hand to slap me. The conditioned reflex from a year of beatings took over. I flinched, crouching down and covering my head with my arms. Ava stared at me, her expression hardening. Who are you putting on a show for? There's no audience here for your little act. I glanced up and saw the mockery on Julian's face. I straightened up, feigning indifference. In prison, they would beat me whether they were in a good mood or not. They forced me to eat food they had stomped into the dirt. They made me crawl on all fours and rode me like a horse. Any resistance meant a group beating. After a few times, I learned. I had to get out, and I had to get out in one piece. I sacrificed all my dignity, becoming their workhorse, their slave. And even then, they would find fault. As I was about to leave, I saw that the jade bangle, which I had placed on a table, was gone. Julian was holding it. This is Ava's bangle, isn't it? He declared. You're stealing it. We'd rather smash it than let you have it. Before I could react, he threw the bangle to the ground. It shattered into a dozen pieces. The sound of it breaking was like my own heart. Cracking. I stared at the spot, frozen for a moment, unable to process what had just happened. It was the only thing my family had left me. My family was never wealthy. My mother was a rich man's daughter who married down for love. After I was born, my father developed a gambling addiction and lost everything. My grandfather's family, afraid of being associated with us, cut off all contact after helping us a few times. This bangle was part of my mother's dowry. It was all I had left of her. I knelt on the floor, picking up the pieces one by one. Tears streamed down my face. It was truly broken. I'm sorry. I looked up and saw guilt in Ava's eyes. She knew what this bangle meant to me. And yet, all she could offer was a weak apology. Julian didn't know about your family. He thought it was mine, she pleaded. He didn't know any better. So can you just? Her words chilled me to the bone. I wiped my tears, cradling the broken pieces, and stood up. No. Julian stood there, not a hint of remorse on his face. In fact, I could see a triumphant glint in his eyes. He had done it on purpose. But my wife would never believe me. Take a look at the divorce agreement when you have a moment, I said, and turned my back on the house that held so many of my memories. 3 years of my life, filled with moments with Ava. But the person inside was no longer me, and there was nothing left for me to cherish. The sky was turning dark. I called a cab and left just as the heavens opened up and a torrential rain began to fall. As I reached my building, I saw a girl on a bicycle, clutching a cat to her chest, struggling through the downpour. I felt a sudden pang of sympathy. As if sensing my kindness, she stopped right in front of my building. Her bright eyes looked up at me, sparkling. "Do you live here?" she asked. I nodded. She looked down at her drenched clothes and the shivering cat in her arms, then at the unrelenting rain. Just as I was about to speak, she spoke first. "Sir, could I possibly take shelter at your place for a bit? I know it's a strange request. I don't have to go up, but could my cat? He's very small." Before she could finish, I nodded. "You should come in too. It's not good for a young woman to be out in this cold." Upstairs, I poured her a cup of hot water. Her little cat sat quietly beside her, looking adorable. "Did you just move in, sir?" I nodded, but didn't speak. "I thought so. I hadn't seen you around before." We chatted idly, and I learned that the girl, Chloe, was a lawyer, an apprentice to a top attorney in the city. "Sir, if you ever need any legal help, I can help you," she offered. Her words made me think about my divorce. If it came to a fight, having a lawyer would be a good idea. I nodded. The rain didn't let up until the next day. As I walked her downstairs, I saw two people I never wanted to see again. Seeing me with Chloe, Ava stormed over, with Julian right behind her. Before I could react, her hand flew towards Chloe's face. "Leo, what do you think you're doing?" Ava screamed, her face contorted with the rage of betrayal. Julian stood beside her, his expression disapproving. "Leo, this isn't right," he chimed in. "Ava and I have never crossed any lines. Even though we have feelings for each other, we've never done anything inappropriate. And you bring a girl home overnight. And to think, I was trying to find someone to repair your mother's bangle for you today." Listening to their accusations, I found the situation laughable. If she had wanted to repair it, she would have stopped Julian, or at least offered a sincere apology. She had done neither. "What are you doing here?" I asked coldly. "What am I doing here? Am I not allowed to come? If I hadn't come today, I wouldn't have caught you in the act. No wonder you wanted a divorce. It was because of this woman, wasn't it? You've only been out of prison a few days, and you're already chasing women." I rubbed my temples, frustrated, and tried to walk past them. Number 118. Hearing that name, my body snapped to attention. I stood there, tense and vulnerable, bracing for a blow that never came. I turned around. There was no one. Only Ava, a cruel smile on her face. She turned to Chloe. "See? He's just a dog. He's been to prison." Her loud proclamation drew stares from all the passers-by. My heart clenched with a suffocating pain. This neighborhood was full of elderly people. Now they all knew. I took a deep breath and explained coldly. It was raining. This young lady just came in to take shelter. She had her cat with her. Chloe nodded quickly in confirmation. But Ava didn't believe it. She grabbed Chloe's arm. "Do you know he's married? That he's a married man. Since you like him so much, let me show you just how pathetic he is." A chill ran down my spine. I started to tremble. Julian stood to the side, a smirk on his face, mouthing silently to me, "You're finished. Everything is about to come out." And sure enough, the next second, Ava took out her phone and played a video. The chaotic sounds, the jeers, the shouting. I saw Chloe's face grow pale. I snatched the phone from her hand. The images on the screen made me stumble. It was me in prison. A group of them, led by Blade, surrounded me. He was hitting my face with the sole of his slipper. Someone else was wiping their dirty foot on my cheek. Another scene showed me, fully clothed, tied to the rafters. The humiliating memories, once again dragged into the light. I looked up at the woman standing before me. This was the woman I had loved for 7 years. For a simple misunderstanding, she was willing to broadcast my deepest shame to the world. I could hear the whispers of the crowd around me. "The young man looks decent enough. To think he suffered so much in prison. But he went to prison. He can't be a good person, can he? But people are framed. People are wrongly convicted." I dug my nails into my palm until blood dripped onto the pavement. "Are you satisfied now?" I asked, my voice hollow. She was really just taking shelter from the rain. "You're trying to destroy me." Ava, who had been so triumphant just a moment ago, looked momentarily dazed, as if she wanted to apologize. "I gave you everything," I continued, my voice breaking. "Why won't you just leave me alone? Shouldn't you be with your precious first love?" It was like I had stepped on her tail. She immediately flew into a rage. "What are you talking about? Julian and I were meant to be. You ruined it. You should be grateful for everything I gave you. And remember this, I am the one who doesn't want you. You don't have the right to say you don't want me." I looked at her dazed. What had I ever seen in her? "While I was in prison, what were you doing?" She looked away, flustered, avoiding the question. Don't change the subject. We're talking about this right now. I gave a bitter laugh. Julian had made sure the guards showed me photos of the two of them, intimate photos, along with their explicit messages. Let's just get divorced, I said. I turned and walked away, ignoring her shouts behind me. I called a cab for Chloe and sent her home. Later, when I messaged Ava about the divorce, I received a barrage of insults instead of a reply. Then, a message from Chloe came through. Sir, were you sent to that private prison on a charge of sexual assault? I replied that I was, but I had no idea that was the official charge. Your wife hired a lawyer from our firm to help her falsify evidence. A series of screenshots followed. The person I had supposedly assaulted was my own wife. In her fabricated testimony, Ava claimed I had raped her and that her parents had forced her to marry me. She had even faked our chat history. And just like that, she sent me to a private prison. Seeing all this, a plan began to form in my mind, but I still had questions. Why are you helping me? I think you're a good person, sir. And what they did was wrong. I told her I needed time to think. I leaned back on the sofa, my heart aching from the events of the past few days. Ring, ring, ring. My phone rang. The caller ID read wife. I answered, and Ava's triumphant voice filled my ear. You didn't know, did you? I was the one who arranged your mother's burial plot. But I only signed a 5-year contract. It's expired now. Julian said your mother must regret ever giving birth to you. So I had her cremated. I had her ashes scattered at sea. After all, your mother always said she wanted to see the ocean. I was just fulfilling her last wish. Her voice droned on, but those few sentences echoed in my mind. I could never visit my mother again. Memories of my childhood, of her love and kindness, flooded back, and a sob escaped my throat. Ava, you've gone too far. She was unfazed. If you hadn't crushed Julian back then, causing him to go into debt, he would have never left me. If it weren't for you, we would have been together long ago. And you, with your fake kindness, pretending to be there for me. You disgust me, Leo. I didn't listen to another word. I hung up, blocked her number, and threw the phone aside. I sat there, helpless, as tears streamed down my face. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Chloe. I want to sue. The reply came almost instantly. The next morning, we were sitting in a coffee shop downstairs. Chloe sat across from me, a stack of evidence on the table. Her eyes were beautiful, clear and bright, as if they could see through all the darkness in the world. Leo, this is all the evidence I have. I'm so glad you decided to fight this. This is not just important for you. It's important for me too. I just shook my head, my mind focused on the details of the case we were discussing. When she confirmed that our victory was almost certain, I filed 2 lawsuits against them, one for divorce and another for extortion and falsifying a criminal case. Chloe sat across from me, her expression encouraging. Her steady gaze made me feel a little shy. My mind kept replaying the humiliating scene from the day before. Suddenly, she moved to the seat next to me. Her big, serious eyes looked right into mine. Don't feel ashamed. I saw what happened that day, but I don't look down on you. I think what happened to you is tragic. To be framed by your own wife, to be beaten in prison. I was worried you wouldn't agree to sue. I'm glad you're willing to fight for yourself. Her words warmed my heart. For the first time, from someone I had only just met, I felt kindness and concern. I nodded at her, my resolve to win growing stronger. When Ava and Julian received the court summons, they were stunned. Ava called me, screaming insults, calling me a spiteful person who couldn't bear to see her happy. If I didn't want her to be happy, I wouldn't have given up so much. The trial began quickly. Chloe sat beside me as my lawyer. It was only then that I learned her full name, Chloe Kim. When she looked at me, her eyes shone with a light that brought me an inexplicable sense of peace. The moment we entered the courtroom, Ava started shouting at me, calling me an ungrateful, heartless man. The divorce case was straightforward and quickly settled. The judge ordered us to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize the divorce immediately after the hearing. Julian, still clueless about the next case that would destroy him, stood by Ava's side, patting her back comfortingly. Then, his case was brought forward. Evidence was presented showing him blackmailing me with a secretly recorded video of Ava. He had threatened to release it unless I paid him. Knowing how much a woman's reputation mattered, I had paid. He then took that money to Ava, claiming I had offered to buy the video out of obsession with her, and that he had borrowed the money to pay me off and make me back down. It was from that day that he had won her heart. Now, with the evidence laid bare, he tried to shrink away, but Ava slapped him hard across the face. If not for the bailiffs intervening, he would have received a much worse beating. Everyone thought the proceedings were over, but my next case against them was a major one, so the court granted a 3-day recess to prepare. When the announcement was made, Ava looked shocked. Julian looked at me with fear in his eyes. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for libel and blackmail. After the hearing, I wanted nothing more than to drag Ava to the Civil Affairs Bureau. She grabbed my sleeve, begging, "Please, can we not get a divorce? I know I was wrong, okay?" Chloe stood beside me, her eyes flashing with anger, but also a hint of worry. She was still too young to hide her feelings. I patted her shoulder, signaling for her to wait outside. Seeing this, a flicker of hope appeared on Ava's face. "I didn't know about any of it. I was wrong to misunderstand you. Can you forgive me?" she asked, her voice cautious and meek, a stark contrast to her usual arrogance. I remained silent. She continued, desperately trying to defend herself. "I was deceived by him. That's why I treated you that way. After you went to prison, I was worried about you every day. I knew I had done something wrong. I regretted it, but it was too late. Now that the truth is out, it must be fate giving me another chance. Can we please not get a divorce? You said you wanted a child, that you wanted to be a father. If you don't divorce me, I can have your children, okay? I do love you." Tears streamed down her face, her every word laced with regret. In the past, seeing her like this, I would have pulled her into my arms and comforted her. But now, after she had trampled on my heart again and again, I was no longer the same man. "We're finished," I said flatly. "We were finished the moment you sent me to prison based on a few words from someone else. After my family died, I thought of you as my only family. But you stabbed me in the heart, over and over again." I took a step back, my gaze firm. "The divorce is final. As per the court's ruling, we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau and received our divorce certificates. Because of her infidelity, she was left with nothing. I gave her the house, but my company was returned to me." A few days later, the final trial began. Ava was once again sitting across from me. In just a few days, she had aged considerably. I felt nothing. Instead, looking at the young woman beside me, a strange softness filled my heart. The evidence was irrefutable. She had no defense. For falsifying evidence and orchestrating a malicious prosecution, she was sentenced to 5 years. Julian, as an accomplice, received an additional 5 years on top of his previous sentence. As she was being led away, she suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me, crying uncontrollably. "Please don't be with anyone else. I know I was wrong. When I get out, I'll make it up to you, okay?" I just shook my head, reminding her that I had made my position clear. She cried until she nearly fainted, looking at the woman I once loved in such a state. I felt no guilt, no pity, no regret for my actions. She had slowly, painfully, worn away all my love for her. This was what she deserved. "I'm no longer asking for your love," she sobbed. "Just please, help me take care of my parents." As she was taken away, she kowtowed to me several times. I would have taken care of them anyway. After my own parents died, they were the only ones who had been kind to me. With everything settled, I used my money to start a new company. I also invested in Chloe's law firm, effectively becoming her boss. She was delighted. Now, no one could force her to take cases she didn't believe in. Her passion for the law would no longer be compromised. A few years passed. Everything fell into place. The once naive girl had blossomed into a confident, beautiful woman. Under her leadership, the law firm's reputation soared. To celebrate our success, I cooked a special dinner at my place, waiting for her to arrive. After a few glasses of wine, her face flushed red. With a charmingly flustered expression, she confessed her feelings for me. Her awkwardness was endearing. I didn't say yes or no. I simply pulled her into my arms. In response, she peppered my cheek with happy kisses. After that, our relationship developed quickly. We got married and soon had our own child. One day, there was a knock on the door. I saw who it was and my mood soured. Ava was out of prison. She looked at me, then bowed stiffly. The years in prison had aged her a decade, stripping her of her former arrogance. It seemed she wanted to say something about starting over, until she saw the wedding portrait on the wall and the baby in the crib. She took a step back. "I destroyed the person who loved me with my own hands. I'm sorry," she whispered. "If time could be turned back, I would beg you to love me one more time." With that, she left. Watching her retreating figure, I could only sigh at how much things had changed. That evening, I told Chloe what had happened. Seeing her jealous pout, my heart felt full. I was glad that everything was finally moving in the right direction. I never heard any news of Ava after that. Not until Julian was released from prison. I learned that Ava had rented an apartment and promised to wait for him. Just when I thought this long drama was finally over, something else happened. Ava was back in prison. This time, for murder. She had lured Julian to her apartment, drugged him, and dismembered his body. She believed he was the one who had destroyed her happiness. A neighbor discovered the crime and called the police. On that day, everything finally came to an end.